In the fading light of the third age of Solinar, when the moon rose pale over the frost-bitten peaks of the Daggerhorn Mountains, the world trembled with whispers of a long-forgotten evil stirring once more. For centuries, the realms of men, Elenari, Dwarakai, and the wild folk of the Hollow Forest lived in uneasy peace, the old wars buried beneath time and stone. But in the shadowed east, beyond the ironwood wastes where no sun dares linger, an ancient relic, the Ember Crown, has awakened. Forged by the first flame and sealed away by kings who no longer walk the world, it now calls to those with hearts blackened by ambition. It began with dreams, shared visions of fire, ruin, and a voice that spoke in tongues older than time, and so fate weaves its threads once more. A young scribe from a forgotten village, a warrior cast out from a broken legion, an Elenari thief with starlight in her blood, and a creature of old, thought extinct, who remembers the world before the fall of the first sun. Bound together by prophecy, hunted by darkness, and burdened with a quest no sane soul would dare attempt, they must cross a world splintered by pride and pain to prevent the rise of an empire that would swallow all light. This is not a tale of heroes. This is the beginning of legend. The Fellows of Dagger Fall. The gathering at the Broken Antler. The rain fell hard that evening, silver streaks cutting across the darkened streets of Grey Hollow, a border town nestled where the merchant roads met the forest's edge. The tavern, the Broken Antler, stood defiantly against the storm, its warm hearth and laughter spilling into the wet night. Inside, fate began to stir. They had each been summoned, though few at first admitted it. Caelan Dern, the scribe of Ashford. A quiet man in his early 20s, ink still stained on his fingers, more used to books than blades. He was awkward in conversation, but there was a sharpness to his eyes, as though every detail of the world was being recorded. The old one-eyed man had whispered to him of ancient texts hidden beneath ruins, truths that only a scribe could unearth. Caelan came not for coin, but for knowledge, though the gold bag helped ease his hunger. Serenia Vale, the Elenari thief. She arrived cloaked in midnight blue, her eyes carrying the faint glow of her starlit heritage. Quick with a blade and quicker with her tongue, Serenia had no interest in noble quests or ancient prophecies. She wanted riches, plain and simple. And yet, the mention of vast treasures had caught her ear. That, and the whispered promise of relics from the lost Elenari kingdoms, trinkets only she might unlock. Durgan Stonevale, the exiled warrior. Broad-shouldered and scarred, his beard flecked with grey, Durgan once wore the crimson crest of the Iron Vanguard before his disgrace. His silence was heavy, broken only by the clink of his tankard. He had refused the Owlbearer outright, until the old man muttered of the darkness rising, an enemy that had slaughtered his legion. Now Durgan came seeking more than coin. He came for vengeance. Brindle, the last Hollokin, most in the tavern thought him no more than a hunched vagabond, his cloak patched and his eyes too bright for any man. Few recognized him for what he was. Hollokin, a race believed extinct since the burning of the old forest. Brindle laughed at odd moments, muttered to himself, and drank ale as though it were water, but behind that eccentric mask lurked ancient memory of sons long dead, and beasts that walked when the world was young. He followed the summons not out of desire, but compulsion, as if the threads of fate tugged him like a puppet. And so it was that these four strangers, bound by little more than the promises of an old man and the weight of a heavy coin purse, found themselves sitting around the same splintered table in the Broken Antler. At first, none spoke. Then the owl swooped in from the open window, scattering rain across the floor. Its wings gleamed like burnished silver in the firelight, and upon its clawed foot hung a scroll bound in red wax. The barkeep swore. Durgan grunted. Serenia smirked. Kaelin, ever curious, reached for the scroll. When the seal broke, the tavern seemed to hush. To those who would take up the task, the letter read in sharp, slanting script, follow the owl to the forest's edge at dawn. There you will find the path to the Ember Crown and the first test of your worth. It was signed only with a single rune, etched in black ink. The fire cracked. Outside, thunder rolled like a war drum. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then Brindle chuckled, a strange sound, both merry and unsettling. "Well," he said, raising his mug, "looks like the game's afoot." And so began their fellowship, reluctant, uneasy, and destined for legend. But there is one thing, or should I say, a whole army and then some standing in their way, bound by the forces of the shadows. The fire in the broken antler spat and crackled, shadows dancing across the ale-slick tables. The four strangers sat in the far corner, the owl's scroll now lying open between them. For a time they said nothing, only the steady rhythm of tankards being drained and refilled. It was Durgan who finally broke the silence. "Well then," he grunted, slamming down his mug with a grin broad enough to split his scarred face. "Forest's edge at dawn, cursed path, ember, whatever. Sounds like my kind of stroll. Danger?" He waved a dismissive hand. "I live and breathe it. She'll be right, mates. Nothing but a bit of sword-swinging and beast-stabbing to get the blood flowing." Serenia leaned back in her chair, smirk tugging at her lips. "You make it sound like a festival game. I, for one, prefer my blood inside my body. But if danger pays in coin, I'm happy to dance along." She tipped her mug in salute to Durgan, eyes glittering with mischief. Brindle cackled, nearly spilling his ale. "Oh, aye, swing and stab, the song of heroes. I'll be there tapping my toes and clapping along. Better still, I'll guard our little ink-stained friend here while you do the stabbing." Kaelin, who had been frowning thoughtfully over the scroll, snapped his head up. "I don't need guarding. I may be a scribe, yes, but don't think I'm helpless." Durgan raised a brow, clearly amused. "Oh? What will you do when the forest vomits out some slavering beast? Throw ink at it?" "I could take out terrifying creatures if I wanted to," Kaelin said with a stiff dignity that faltered only slightly. "I just choose not to. I scribe instead." That was enough to send Serenia into a fit of laughter, joined quickly by Brindle's wheezing chuckles and Durgan's booming guffaw. "Whatever floats your boat, Quill boy," Serenia gasped, clutching her sides. "But don't worry, we'll protect you. You just keep your parchment dry, so you can write the epic tale of how Durgan wrestled a bear with one hand while drinking ale with the other." "True story already," Durgan said with a wink. "I'll make sure the tale has embellishments," Kaelin muttered, though the corner of his mouth twitched as if suppressing a smile. Their raucous laughter drew the attention of nearby patrons, grizzled traders, and weather-worn hunters who eyed the strangers with grim curiosity. One particularly scarred man leaned over, his voice carrying across the table. "You lot planning to head east, into the Ironwood?" Durgan grinned, slapping the table. "That's the road." The man shook his head slowly. "Then you'll not be coming back. None do. Not since the shadows began to stir. The trees whisper in those woods. Men vanish without a sound. And if that don't chill your blood enough—" He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "They say a dragon sleeps there. Not flesh and bone, mind you, but cursed and rotting. An undead worm, its heart still beating black fire. A guardian of something old and something evil. The laughter at the table faltered, if only for a breath. Even Brindle's grin faded, his bright eyes suddenly far away. But then Durgan lifted his mug, foam spilling down his beard. A dragon, eh? Haven't cracked a worm's skull in years. Sounds like a proper adventure. Serenia smirked, raising her drink to clink against his. And a proper fortune, if it's guarding what I think it is. Brindle raised his mug high, nearly toppling backward off his stool. To deathless dragons and foolish friends, may our scribe live long enough to write about how spectacularly we perish. Kalen sighed, rubbing his temples. This is madness. But he lifted his mug all the same.